From the studios in San Diego, California, this is Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network, coming to you live here on this Monday, January 23rd, 2017. I hope it's nice weather where you are. We're in the middle of day 5 of this 6-day torrential downpour out here, but that is not the task at hand today. It is the conference championship games that ended yesterday. About convincing wins as you can get. I mean, Atlanta was never let Green Bay in that game yesterday, and neither did the Patriots. They never let Pittsburgh really get into that game. Never really let them get the momentum, and that's where we'll start today is with the Steelers and the Pats. Roethlisberger was asked yesterday during the post-game press conference, how frustrating is it to have the game that he had, 31 for 47, 114 with a touchdown, and look over on the other and look up at the scoreboard and find out that you lost, and for Brady to have the game that he had, and really, Roethlisberger answered that about as good as you can. He said, "Listen, it's Tom Brady. That's why he's one of the best to ever play the game, and he truly is. 32 for 42, 384 with 3 touchdowns. I mean, this guy, again, you could see it early. The guy's on a mission, and I've said it from the beginning of the season. He is on a mission this year. He is not going to stop until he gets that Super Bowl trophy. And he has proved that time and time again this year that he is on a mission. And this year, yesterday, was no different. Roethlisberger was right. This is why Tom Brady is one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. And in my opinion, the best to ever play the game. He let a doggone good team in the Pittsburgh Steelers. They weren't close. He went into the locker room and said, "All right, 17-9 is way too close," and then he blew the doors off them in the third quarter alone. And Chris Berman was struggling to, but he eventually spit it out last night, how versatile the Patriots are. And you're going to see that is a theme between the two teams that have made the Super Bowl this year. Versatility. They are not just is not just a one-trick pony. He does not have one guy to throw it to. He's got 5 or 6. You saw the same thing in Atlanta yesterday with Matt Ryan. First quarter, he had already thrown to 6 different receivers. Yesterday it was Hogan. Week before that, it could be Edelman. I mean, next week it could be Edelman. It could be Bennett. It could be Danny Amendola, who I think is who I've thought for a couple of years now is one of the most undervalued receivers in the league. It could be LeGarrette Blount that goes off next week. You don't know. And that's the scary part about the Pats. You do not know. Of course, a lot of Steeler fans are going to point to the injury to Le'Veon Bell. That is a killer for the Steelers. That is almost crippling to them. Not to say that they do not have good receivers, because they do. Brown was seven catches for 77. Rodgers 7 catches for 66. Williams 7 catches for 51. James had 5 catches for 48. So that's not to say that they do not have passing targets And of course, you have Roethlisberger, who's one of the top five quarterbacks in the league. But when you do not have that versatility that Le'Veon Bell brings to the field for the Steelers, it doesn't work as well. And that is one of and that is this game. There was nothing. There was absolutely nothing that the Steelers could have done to beat this team. The Patriots were always going to win this game, whether Le'Veon Bell was in or not. But when Le'Veon Bell was out, and essentially you found out he was going to be out for the game, you knew it was going to be a very, very long night for Pittsburgh, and that's what it turned into, especially into the second half. It turned into a very, very long night for the Steelers. That, and if you look at Le'Veon Bell's numbers, I mean, the guy was not effective. Six catches, six runs for 20 yards. That is a far cry off of the 20 runs for 150 yards that we've seen during the postseason already. That is a very, very far cry off of what we have seen. So the Pats were shutting him down to begin with. They shut him down, and then you never like to see players get injured, but they put him out. And again, Brady goes on and does what Brady does. It's gonna be what, his eighth Super Bowl now? Looking to win his sixth. Somebody posed the question before, I think it was on Yahoo. Has Brady's career surpassed Michael Jordan's as the greatest in team sports history? And obviously, the games that they played were completely different. But when you look at Tom Brady, he is doing things at almost 40 that quarterbacks don't do. That nobody else has done. Nobody else has made it to 8 Super Bowls. No one else has gone for a chance. No one else has had a chance to possibly win six. He has led this team for nearly 20 years. And I am sure that when he retires, he is going to be remembered as the greatest football player of all time. If not the greatest football player, definitely the greatest quarterback of all time. Definitely the greatest quarterback of all time. And the scary part is he shows absolutely no signs of wear. He shows no signs of tear. He shows no signs of slowing up. He shows no signs of digressing. He is just as good as he was 10 years ago. He is just as good as he was 10 years ago when the Pats went 16-0. That, for a lot of people, should be a very, very scary thought. I know for teams in the AFC, that is. If you're Pittsburgh, if you're, say, Baltimore, if you're Kansas City, if you're Denver, you guys, you got to sit back and go, is this guy ever going to stop? Because all he's done is tear through the AFC every year of his career. Guy's been to 8 straight AFC championship games. Now that is going to play in his eighth Super Bowl. He is still doing things that no one had thought possible. And he just continues to roll, continues to dominate, continue to prove week in and week out why he is the best that his position has to offer. He continues to prove why he is the benchmark for all quarterbacks in this league. Falcons Packers when we return. You're listening to Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network. All right, we're back. You're listening to Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network. The Georgia Dome closed out yesterday for the final time, and it closed out with a win over the Packers. We will try to get Crucial this week. I know I've said that a lot, but nothing's been able to really materialize until now. Um, I've spoke for the last couple weeks now about the Packers on a roll. Their momentum is going to carry them only so far. Every momentous streak comes to an end. And for the Packers to get into the playoffs, they started just at the right time. But to get all the way through, they started a bit too early. They absolutely, at least in the first half, they absolutely came out and laid a duck in the first half in Atlanta. Not just on offense, but on defense also. The missed tackles, the passes allowed, it was a disaster for the Packers in the first half. The fumbles that they lost, the fumbles that they couldn't recover. And Atlanta, at least on that first drive, was giving Green Bay chances to at least get in the game. They had a stupid play where Gabriel came across the snap and fumbled, and that was a big missed opportunity. Matt Ryan fumbles on the one. There's a missed opportunity. Matt Ryan, who, oh, by the way, throws 27 for 38, 392, and four touchdowns. Rodgers was right. This was a game where the Packers just weren't good. Second half, they came out and they started to turn it around. But when it's 31 nothing, there's no the game's over. There's no coming back from 31 nothing in the second half. And this game really did show just again, as I said, the versatility of the Falcons. They had eight different receivers catch passes, five different guys run, all with success. Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman, those guys coming out of that backfield for Atlanta are big weapons. Freeman ran for 14 for 42, Coleman 11 for 29, and they caught Freeman 4 for 42 and Coleman 3 for 35. Those are versatile players, and they're great at running. They're great at bouncing off of tackles. They're great at evading. They have a ton of skill that are going to give the Patriots headaches. Julio Jones, who saw double coverage pretty much all day, still 9 for 180 and two touchdowns. That touchdown run where he slanted across the field, broke one tackle, stiff armed away from another, that was the dagger. That was it. The game was over from there. And to be perfectly honest, you could tell in the first drive that the Packers were not going to, they were not in this game. When Mason Crosby misses that field goal, you're sitting there going, "Oh, this is going to be a long day." And I knew right there the Packers weren't winning the game. There are certain little signs, if you look for them early in games, that can tell you that can tell you who's going to win. And that was the sign right there. Missing his first field goal from 41 yards in 23 attempts after he made a 56-yarder and a 51-yarder with all the pressure in the world on him last week. To go out there and miss a no pressure 41-yarder, you know the game's over. You know they're not there. Then the Ripkowski fumble. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what was so controversial about that play. There was no controversy. He fumbled the ball. The ball was out. His knees were not on the ground. He was going to the ground. His knees didn't fall. His knees weren't on the ground. His hands weren't on the ground. His forearm wasn't. That's not a fumble. That is a fumble. That's not. There's no controversy about that play whatsoever. It is. That's honestly. It's about as easy as it gets. It's a fumble. That was a killer for Green Bay early. You try to keep Atlanta. You try to keep Atlanta from getting as much momentum as they possibly can. Again, this was. It was just a bad game. It was a bad game for Atlanta, for Green Bay. They could not capitalize on mistakes that Atlanta made. They couldn't in the first half at least. They could not get out of our own way. They could not get out of their own way. It was just a bad, bad, just a bad game. It was a bad game all the way around. The Packers put up one hell of a fight to get to where they were, but in the end, it was just a little too much. When you run into that Atlanta Falcons team with the running backs that they have, Matt Ryan, who is proving that he is an elite quarterback in this league, and he is somebody that always, 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 when you're talking about elite quarterbacks, when you're talking about elite quarterbacks, when you're talking about top five, top 10 quarterbacks in this league, he is a guy that is always, always, always overlooked. Unless Atlanta's doing bad, like they were last year, after they went 6-0 and then fell and lost and went under 500. And now he has led the Falcons to their second Super Bowl in franchise history. And a Falcons team that looks good enough to take on the Pats and looks good enough to take them down. They could cause a couple of matchup nightmares because while the Patriots don't have a clear number one, a clear number two, a clear number three wide receiver, the Falcons have really two number ones in Jones and Sanu. And then they have the two guys, the two mobile, quick, versatile guys that can run out of the backfield. That can run out of the backfield. They can take the check down pass and move it for yards. They have that ability. They are very, very good at what they do. And they could cause a headache for the Patriots. We are going to try to move away from football a little bit this week because this week is the Pro Bowl and really nobody cares about the Pro Bowl. As we get more into next week, we'll start really talking about the Super Bowl. And of course, next Friday will be completely, entirely dedicated to the Super Bowl. But with that, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back before we end the program with baseball, a little bit of basketball. We'll get you the scores from this weekend. We'll get you the games for today, and then we'll end the program. So we will be right back. You're listening to Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network. All right, we're back. Listening to Frank Fired Up here on the Mix Up Sports Network. We put it off to the end of the program for the sheer fact of, there's the conference championship games having been played, but there's really nothing much else to go. There's really nothing much else to go over from this weekend, whether it be from national sports to or New York sports. Um, Other than what happened yesterday, the absolute tragedies that happened yesterday, and of course I'm talking about Yordano Ventura and Andy Marte. Ventura 25, Marte 33. Both passed away in unrelated car accidents in the Dominican Republic, either late Saturday night or early Sunday morning. Um, Ventura, I'll be honest, I don't know much about Marte. I really didn't. I mean, from what I can get, from what I've gathered, he's a role player, a very solid, very nice role player, who really never really found a team to sit with. He played for the Indians, he played for the Braves, he played for the Diamondbacks. Really found no place to really get settled in. But for Ventura, again, a 25-year-old who had a bright career ahead of him, very, very rough around the edges when it came to his attitude. In 3.5 years of ball, he was the catalyst behind four bench clearing brawls, including three in 1 month in 2015. So the kid was very, very, very rough around the edges. And of course, the most recent one being this year, this June, against Baltimore when he got into it with Manny Machado. The kid was absolutely loaded with talent. He was again, maybe not as good as Jose Fernandez, but he was a stud superstar young pitcher in this league, and he was going to be for a very, very long time to come. I mean, you want to talk about um, Jose Fernandez last year. Now this year you've lost Yordano Ventura, and that is going to be a very, very big hit to the Kansas City Royals and baseball in general. Because again, he was a number one, number two starting pitcher for the Royals, and again, just an incredible, incredible, incredible young talent who had a very, very long career ahead of him if he was able to curb his attitude, which he had proved was going to be a little difficult. Again, four bench clearing altercations in 3.5 years. Really, four in a year and a half span that he started. So, I mean, again, it's another huge, massive loss for Major League Baseball, and of course, the thoughts and prayers out to the families of those two players. They have stated that Ventura's funeral will be tomorrow in the Dominican Republic, and they're expecting a slew of current and past Royals to be in attendance for that. So, again, just the incredibly sad passing of Yordano Ventura and Andy Marte yesterday. Both of them involved in car accidents, unrelated car accidents in the Dominican Republic. Just to, I guess, really, we'll go to finals from there. Final scores from from Saturday. You had the Brooklyn Nets taking on the Charlotte Hornets. Of course, that was a Nets loss. 112-105 Charlotte. Knicks losing late 107-105 to the Phoenix Suns. That is a major problem for the Knicks this year. among other things, is just the fact that they cannot close out games. The Brooklyn Nets will get another loss tacked onto their record as they host the San Antonio Spurs this evening. Both of them with equal but opposite records. Spurs coming in at 34-9. Nets are 9-34. Meanwhile, you can watch the Knicks embarrass themselves on national television this evening, starting at 8 o'clock Eastern. They play the Indiana Pacers in Indiana. So if you want to watch the Knicks embarrass themselves on a national scale, TNT at 8 o'clock this evening is the best way is the way to go. For to the ice now. The Montreal Canadiens beating the New Jersey Devils on Friday by a final score of 3-1. Saturday, you had the Kings. You had the Islanders beat the Kings 4-2. The Devils beat the Flyers 4-1. Those are the finals from Saturday. From yesterday, the Rangers shut out the Detroit Red Wings in overtime, 1-0. A goal by J.T. Miller, a minute 56 into overtime, was the difference there. Islanders fall to the Flyers 3-2 as Claude Giroux nets his 11th in overtime. So the Islanders 5 out of a possible 6 points in 3 games under Doug Wade. So there you go. Tonight, you have the New York Rangers taking on the LA Kings at the Garden. There's the only New York area hockey this evening. Tomorrow, you have the Devils and the Kings, Islanders and the Blue Jackets tomorrow. And just really quick, one of the I'm not sure. It came out probably about a year or two ago. Um, it was on again last night. The 30 for 30 about John Spano possibly fraudulently buying the Islanders. I mean, it's one. I'm sitting there going, only the Islanders would be dumb enough to. Only the Islanders would be dumb enough to get caught up in this. But two, just the way he did it, scamming a fleet bank in Boston out of $80 million with fake documents. I mean, it is unbelievable, and stuff that you know would never, ever, ever happen again. It really, it's just it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable to think that that would have happened. And just think, I to understand that Spano was a fan of the team and he had the team's best interest in his mind, from owners that really didn't want the team, didn't really care, and that has been one of the problems with the Islanders since the glory days of the '80s. They've always just found owners that don't care. I mean, from Pickett to Wong, really didn't care after a while. He just didn't care. And hopefully now with Ledecky and company that they actually have owners that do care. Um, they have owners that look like they're trying to learn a little bit too much and they're being a little too out there with some of their information. But at least it looks like they have an ownership that cares now. Um, but to think that somebody can completely fraudulently, buy an NHL team, still just watching it, I'm sitting there going, how in the world was he able to pull that off for as long as he was able to pull it off? It was an absolute miracle. So with that, that will end the program for today. Thank you very, very much for listening, and I will see you guys tomorrow.